So today we're going to be discussing the regional music scene of Cincinnati, Ohio. Cincinnati, Ohio is lovingly referred to as the Queen City, and its regional music scene is a smaller regional music scene, but it has many interesting points to it. It is the unofficial birthplace of rock and roll. It has an eclectic, diverse, and authentic mix of genres and talent. Um, it is dominated by major live music venues, and it has a history of combating racial division and cultural boundaries. Um, it is also the home to many game-changing recording studios. All of these things we'll discuss in the slides to follow. But the emergence of the music scene in Cincinnati, Ohio. Just a quick history on Cincinnati. The Cincinnati settlement was established as early as the late 1700s. It developed into a township in 1802 and thrived as a center of the arts and commerce over the following decades. By 1820, the locals called their city the Queen City, and it quickly became a creative and economic hub in this area of the country. The driving force, also in 1910, there was an insurgence of jazz music, which kind of came out at that point. But the driving force behind the emergence of the music scene being more well known is was the early days of music was the iconic influence of King Records, the recording studio. The company's revolutionary diversity philosophy, embracing and combining different people of different backgrounds and race, is what created a whole new genre. King Records was founded by Sid Nathan, and Sid Nathan had a philosophy that he wanted to, he didn't want to see color through music. He wanted to combine people of all races and ethnic backgrounds. Many people told him that blacks and whites would not make music together, and he went against that grain and wanted to stubbornly make that happen. And because at the beginning of King Records, it started off as a hillbilly record label and then ventured its way into race music, or as we like to call it today, R&B. He worked with James Brown and Nina Simone. The two of them accredit King Records as the place at the beginning of their career. And Cincinnati is smack dab in the middle of the Midwest, and a lot of is settled by German settlers, and a lot of the Germans at the time believed musicians and people who recorded music and made records to be gypsies and thieves and not upstanding citizens. And so Sid Nathan's ability to put Cincinnati on the map with King Records, both economically and socially, is its impact to the world, actually. And Larry Nagar, to the point of the fact that Cincinnati is the unofficial house of and home of rock and roll, Larry Nagar, a former pop columnist, says that while no single city has naming rights at the birthplace of rock and roll, the elements that made rock and roll, the blend of country, blues, the big beat, were created at King Records. So that also speaks to the emergence and the influence and impact of Cincinnati's music scene and where it started. Cincinnati's music scene traits are unique in that it's a small big city, so it does not doesn't have the impact of like a New York or LA, but it's just a small jump from Cleveland, which houses the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In Cincinnati, there are more records recorded by musicians that were later made famous by other artists than any other in the country. Cincinnati has a lot of well-trained musicians due to the University of Cincinnati College and Conservatory of Music. It's a tight-knit culture and a family environment. It's not competitive as much as you would see in other arenas. And there are also lots of mini live music venues. The mini music venues are what draw the tourists and the locals to keep coming, and the artists have actual followings because it is such a smaller community, and they get to know people on a first name basis, and they know their artists. They know their artists more than you would. And there's more relationship there than you would see if you were in a New York or LA or something like that. Some of the live music venues are Bogart's, and the Sudsy Malone's was a venue as well that was a laundromat and a music venue and a bar all at the same time. So there's lots of eclectic, different types of music venues. Their philosophy is this is a very blue collar town, but there's some very urban elements to it. It's, like I said, a very mixed culture. But their philosophy is be your own band, put out your own single, and open up your own recording studio. They're very their scene is symbolized by they like to just pull themselves up by the bootstraps, and if there isn't an opportunity for them, they will go out and make it happen. They're very self-starting, and they are closed off from a lot of influence that would probably help them get success, but they like to make it for themselves. The heart of the Cincinnati music scene is to collaborate. They like to have all kinds of different genres performing together and moving together at the same time. The business side of the music scene, Cincinnati was, like I said, a major recording center with King Records, Herzog Studios, and Fraternity Records. It's a city where music genre blends blues, country, rock, and the big beat. Culturally, this is where the country collides, so there are lots of different influences working and moving together. The road ahead. As of December 2017, Cincinnati is the 30th largest radio market in the United States. Cincinnati Music Hall, which is a major landmark in Cincinnati, received a $143 million facelift, which speaks to the fact that the city of Cincinnati cares about the arts and wants to see it grow, and it is growing and blooming. On the Rhine, a very popular neighborhood in Cincinnati, home to a lot of music venues and a lot of different places where music happens, is a very booming area and part of the city. These are a few of the major music festivals that come through. That's a big part of the business and where the economy of this industry is growing in this scene. But the Cincinnati May Festival, the Bunbury Music Festival, the Summit Fest, Cincy Blues Fest, Cincinnati Music Festival, and the Bellwether Music Festival are just a few of the major ones that bring a lot of tourists into the city. Major players are the Isley Brothers. They are an American music group from Cincinnati. Their genre is of funk, R&B, gospel, rock and roll. They went into prominence with their first recording of their song Shout, and they won a Grammy for their song called It's Your Thing. They're a prolific group that produced many top 40 hits, and they have a very cross-cultural, diverse, influencing, and prominent career, which also speaks to the diverse environment that they came from in Cincinnati. Another major player is L.A. Reid. He was born in June 7th, 1956. He joined in the Cincinnati R&B band in the 80s, where he was born and raised. He is the founder and CEO of Hitgo Entertainment, Epic Records, the Island Def Jam Music Group, and Arista Records. He has worked with people like Mariah Carey, the Jacksons, Toni Braxton, has won 18 BMI awards and 40 number one singles, so he has a very big influence, and it's a great feat that he has come from Cincinnati. The Cincinnati Music Hall is recognized as a National Historic Landmark and a big place and symbol of arts growing in Cincinnati. Houses classical music, the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, and the Cincinnati Ballet. This venue has hosted presidents such as Ulysses S. Grant, William McKinley, Theodore Roosevelt, and Dwight Eisenhower, and among others. It also housed the Democratic National Convention in the Music Hall in 1880, and it also, like I said, received a major renovation. And to conclude it with a quote from William Taylor. He says, the breadth and the depth of the Cincinnati music scene is outstanding. Whether it's indie rock, Americana, hip hop, garage punk, or straight on pop, the music scene in Cincinnati is unusually strong and diverse. So that just goes to show you that the legacy from King Records all the way to now is continually growing and diverse and booming through its original authenticity.